AITA for telling my cousin I am not sorry about what happened to her dad's life after he hit me, posting on a throwaway, because people who follow my main do not need to know about the dark family history. My aunt used to be married to a guy called John, and they had my cousin Abby. John was a pretty awful guy. I knew that even at a young age. Our whole family hated him. He was a drunk, belligerent, had a temper, all the usuals. My aunt was blind to it. One day, when I was 8, I was over at their house with Abby, and my aunt was supposed to be watching us. I can't remember the circumstances of why I was there, but my mom insists they must have been desperate for childcare. Anyway, my aunt was supposed to be there and John was supposed to be at work, but she gave me a phone just in case of emergencies. John came home at some point during the day and went straight to bed. Me and Abby were playing in her room and my aunt was downstairs. I guess we were making too much noise because John woke up and totally lost his essence. He stormed into the room, screaming at us. It all happened pretty quickly, but from what I remember, he shoved Abby to the ground and kicked her. Not hard, just sort of pushed her with his foot while she tried to get up. I ran and hid behind the bed, but he came and grabbed me. He dragged me over to the middle of the room and slapped me. Again, not that hard, but enough to make me cry because I'd never been hit before. My scream brought my aunt into the room and she was pretty scared. I remember her being really upset and John defending himself, saying we needed to learn to be quiet and it was her fault for not watching us while he was sleeping. Eventually, he left the room and my aunt was comforting me. She begged me not to tell my mom. She offered me money and ice cream to stay quiet. I was so scared that I agreed. Right after we had ice cream downstairs, I went to the bathroom and called my dad and told him what happened. 20 minutes later, my dad shows up and demands to see John. I won't describe in too much detail what happened, but John ended up in hospital after my dad was done with him. It was made clear that John was no longer welcome in the family and that my aunt wouldn't receive any more financial support if she stayed with him. So, she left. John's life kind of fell apart. He never worked very much and mostly lived off my aunt, who was living off my parents and grandparents. He had nowhere to live, inconsistent income, was couch surfing for a while. His drinking got worse. He has been in and out of Abby's life ever since. Abby has hated since the incident. She blames me for her family falling apart. I think it's kind of fair enough that she keeps her distance from me. I was a large part of why things happened the way they did, and that hurts her. The problem is she never shuts up about it. Every family event is just her complaining and sniping that she doesn't have a dad anymore because of me. The rest of the family do tell her to knock it off, but she always cries and that just ends the conversation. She gets worse about it when John drops contacting her for a few months. All this being said, we had a big Easter dinner at my grandparents' house and Abby was again complaining she hadn't seen her dad in months because he was away working across the country, and it was sad that at his age he had to take these kinds of jobs because he lost his family over some whining brat, aka me, who had never apologized. I won't lie, I was a little hungover, had just got off a plane. I was not at my most gracious, but I had just had enough. Before anyone else could tell her to knock it off, I said I wasn't the least bit sorry about what happened to her dad. I said he was in a civ pose, and just because she was okay with him hitting children doesn't mean anyone else was, and that if he had had 2 brain cells that weren't constantly fighting, maybe he'd have been smart enough to keep his unhinged behavior focused on the people who would put up with it. Well, that didn't go down well. Abby completely broke down, trashed her plate and glass, called me a psychopath, and left. My mother, stepdad, grandma, and aunt think I went overboard. Grandpa and stepbrother are on my side. First comment, a use hurts people in different ways. Abby clearly clung to her father and learned to be an enabler along with her mother. She learned to make excuses for him and see everyone else as the problem. It's destroyed her. It means that she will never place responsibility where it belongs. Op will always be the enemy. It happened with my sister. She was the golden child and I the scapegoat. I was always considered in the wrong and she could do no wrong. It caused me to seek out help because I didn't want to do wrong. I realized it was never me thanks to lots of therapy. My sister, on the other hand, still thinks everyone else is the problem. No one understands her, and everyone is against her. There is no helping her. She is like an used animal that bites. You can love her, want to help her, but she will bite you out of nowhere and resent you for any help you try to give her. It's sad. Abby will always see Op as the problem because it is easier than dealing with the truth. She can go on believing her dad isn't the scum of the earth. She doesn't have to hold him responsible for his actions, especially with the family coddling her, which they feel they need to do to make up for how itty her parents are, all while not acknowledging that the parents are the issue. Enablers are use facilitators. They are so tricky because they are good at getting people on their side. They can make themselves seem like they need protecting because they are also a victim, but the difference is they find power in the victimhood. They use it to make others do things for them because they feel bad for the enabler. The enabler will pretend to be on your side and even be a protector doing things for you, but they will throw you under the bus to make their life easier every single time. It can be so hard to untangle the kind of mess of feeling bad for an enabler. Second comment, NTA, you told her the truth. The truth isn't going overboard. She had to hear it. If she's going to open her mouth every time about her abusive father, then someone needs to tell her the truth every single time. You had every right to defend yourself the best you could as a child. I'm glad your mom gave you a phone to call for emergencies. John and Abby's mom are also I can't believe she tried to brib you and make you promise not to tell. I'm surprised your mom didn't go scorch earth on her. Abby's mom pick her abusive husband over the safety of Abby and seriously, who bribs a child to keep quiet just so their awful husband wouldn't get in trouble, and they continued getting financial help too. Abby needs therapy and needs to work out her feelings there. She needs to full come to terms that not only did her abusive father failed her, but also her enabler mother failed her as well. She needs to stop blaming you for her own dad's actions. No, you don't need to apologize to Abby in case they expect you to. Abby needs to hear the truth and stop putting blame on an 8-year-old at the time versus full-grown man hurting children. I don't think you did anything wrong by standing up for yourself once again. Sometimes telling someone to knock it off doesn't work. Abby needed to hear the truth. Doesn't matter if she like it not. The truth doesn't change the fact that what her father did to you both was okay. Third comment, your aunt has a guilty conscience that she failed her child by bringing a useless and abusive man into her life and has continued to allow him to be present in her life. She can't stand up and say that it needs to end because she feels responsible for it all, which she is, in a way. However, the situation sounds likely that it is quite a sieve to her as well, and it isn't so easy to say that an abused spouse is at fault for their abuse. She has a duty to protect her child and her family, no doubt. But she probably felt more stuck, because if she left, then it's a huge question mark about how she'll support herself and her daughter and keep him from abusing them. Hopefully this can illustrate that it's a muddy situation that makes it difficult in the middle of it to make the correct decisions. Someone needs to sit your cousin down and explain to her now that you're both older that her dad is where her dad is where her dad is because of his own choices and actions. Not just to come home drunk and beat his daughter and step-niece or whatever you are, but every decision that has been made before and after that point as well. He's made his choices and decisions which have set the course of his life. If he's working away from home for months at a time, that is because he chooses to rather than finding gainful employment that keeps him near his family. If he's absent from her life for months at a time, it's a choice that he's made. Talk to your grandparents directly. Ask them about what they think is the best way to put all this drama to rest. They're older and wiser, probably why they see through all the bullshit and can call it out when they see it. You guys still sound like you're pretty young, so there's still plenty of time for the situation to change and for people to grow and understand that what they saw as reality was just a shroud over their eyes hiding them from the truth staring them in the face.